Service has always been important within Hinduism, within all Hindu sects, whether they be dualistic, qualified non-dualistic, or monistic. But it's always been traditionally on a personal level, not organizational, that is, until the advent of the Ramakrishna mission, the order to which I belong. And I'll explain later why and how this developed. So what is the motivating force behind social service in Hinduism? Three things I would say. Dharma, which loosely translates as ethics, righteous living. Hinduism's philosophy of the interconnectivity of all life and the ideal of compassion for all creatures. Service is actually called Ishta Porta, and that means sacrifice and charity as a way of leading to liberation. On a personal level, if you go to India and you're a guest, you're treated as God himself or herself. It's quite an experience. Anyone who comes to one's home is given shelter, food, and alms. The wealthy and pious Hindus arrange special occasions to feed the poor, clothe the poor. On a village level, Dharmic Hindus build way stations for the pilgrims and the sadhus. They construct feeding stations for the monks and the poor, and they build ponds and schools for the common good. Now, with the advent of the Ramakrishna order, social service was jetted up a notch. It went beyond the inspiration of dharma, the interconnectivity of life, and even compassion itself. But it is rooted in Vedanta, a little pamphlet that you have, which means literally the end of the Vedas. Anta means end. The Vedas are the oldest living scriptures of the world. And that would be the Upanishads, the revelations of the ancient seers of India. It's a monistic philosophy. The tenets are simple. God, what we call Brahman, is. God can be realized. Our true nature is divine, what we call Atman. And this Atman and Brahman, God immanent and God transcendent, are one. The goal of life is to make this knowledge our own, self-realization, and the harmony of religions. Truth is one, sages call it by various names. So says the Rig Veda. Now there are 4 methods of union, and they relate to the 4 aspects of our psychophysical being. First of all, our emotional level, Bhakti Yoga, which is the path of devotion, the path of prayer and worship. Karma Yoga, which deals with this, a topic tonight, is the path of action, our active nature, which is seeking union by transforming our work into worship in a dedicated, unselfish, and detached spirit. Raja Yoga deals with our contemplative nature. It's the path of psychic control to perfect the mind as an instrument of clear insight into truth. And finally, Jnana Yoga, which deals with our intellectual nature, and that is leading the intellect into a path of inquiry through analysis and discrimination to discover the true nature of reality. Non-dual Vedanta accepts all gods as the one God. Therefore, monism is different from monotheism. So God in Vedanta can be both personal and impersonal. The personal God can be Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Yahweh, Allah, all of which symbolize what is beyond name and form. But the mind cannot surpass symbols. It needs a symbol in which to begin to focus the energies of light from the mind. The formless Brahman we call Satchidananda. Sat, the existence through which everything else exists. Chit, pure consciousness that contains all knowledge. And Ananda, undiminished bliss, the peace that passeth all understanding. Now a little bit about Ramakrishna, because he is the one that lifted the bar of social service in the Hindu tradition. He was an Indian mystic who lived from 1836 to 1886. And he experienced Satchidananda at least every day, if not several times a day, and knew from first-hand experience the truth of the unity of all existence and how to put it into practice through social service. Once he was asked by devotees who came to the temple where he worshipped, what were the devotional practices of those who followed Lord Krishna? And he said, there are three: devotion to God, compassion for all living beings, and service of devotees of God. But then he went into a mystic state, what is known as samadhi. And he said to himself, compassion for all beings? No, not compassion, but service to all as manifestations of God. No separation. So this service, this social service that was developed in the Ramakrishna mission, is actually the worship of unity in diversity. The same God, the same higher self within all. So this karma yoga, this path of action, is selfless service, work as worship. Now Vivekananda, who was the foremost disciple of Ramakrishna, took this to the West. He came to America at the 1893 Chicago Parliament of Religions. He revolutionized Indian monasticism. He revolutionized Hinduism. The ideal up until then had been for monastics self-realization alone. But with Vivekananda, our motto was not only self-realization, but for the good of the world. What Vivekananda did was he took monks out of the caves, out of the hermitages, and put them into the hospitals, the schools, the hostels, the orphanages. And in this way, monastics progressed much more rapidly in the realm of social service, rather than those contemplatives who were still in their caves. He revolutionized Hinduism because today Vivekananda's ideal has spread throughout India, and the Indian government simply cannot handle the number of volunteers who come forward during the disaster relief. In America, our social service is a little different. The need here is spiritual. And so the Vedanta societies in this country teach meditation. They give spiritual retreats. They teach spiritual practices without charge. We have Vedanta literature to send this out, libraries, catalogs, and we engage in interfaith dialogue as part of our social service. In the 1970s, when Americans began to experience the problem of the homeless, our mission changed somewhat. We were invited to establish prison ministries, which we do, feed the homeless and the poor, which we do, counsel for hospice, and also counsel on college campuses for our own parishioners. So, in a nutshell.